Hello guys, zip through film history with Flashback flicks, subscribe for the ride. Get ready to leap into the lively world of Peter Rabbit, where a mischievous bunny and his friends create chaos and laughter in the picturesque countryside. Expect clever antics, playful adventures, and a heartwarming tale of bravery and friendship. Our tale begins in the lush countryside of England, where we meet Peter, a mischievous young rabbit wearing a blue jacket. Peter lives with his sisters Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, and their cousin Benjamin. Peter and his family planning their latest raid on Mr. McGregor's vegetable garden. Peter, ever the daredevil, leads the charge. Peter assigns his sisters to keep watch while he takes Benjamin along to collect vegetables from Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter sneaks into the garden. He swiftly gathers an armful of vegetables, handing some to Benjamin as they continue their operation. Peter accidentally drops a tomato onto a trap set. The sound alerts McGregor, and soon he is chasing Peter across the garden. Peter runs as fast as he can. His little sister, Cottontail, distracts McGregor with another tomato, giving Peter a moment to escape. In the heat of the chase, Peter makes a reckless decision. He grabs a carrot and jabs it at McGregor, trying to outwit the old man. McGregor turns, his eyes narrowing with anger. Peter tries to flee but is caught in a trap, losing his precious blue jacket in the process. Just as McGregor closes in, their kind neighbor, Bee, arrives and unknowingly rescues Peter, defusing the situation by calmly talking to Mr. McGregor, who grudgingly backs off. She leads them away from the garden, taking them back to her home. Safe in Bee's care, she is an artist with a kind heart, often paints whimsical scenes of nature, including Peter and his family. Her paintings are abstract, full of emotion, though others in the village don't always appreciate her work. She knows the history between Peter and McGregor well. McGregor had fenced off his garden, determined to keep Peter and the other animals out. The feud started long ago when Peter's father was caught in the garden and made into a rabbit pie, a tragedy that left a lasting scar on Peter. On the way back to the burrow, Peter spots his jacket hanging on a scarecrow. Determined to retrieve his jacket, Peter sneaks back into the garden. After retrieving it, he tries to flee, but once again, he's caught by McGregor, who plans to make a rabbit pie just as he did with Peter's father. But fate intervenes as McGregor suddenly collapses from a heart attack. Peter returns to his burrow with a lot of vegetables. With Mr. McGregor gone, the rabbits believe they've won the garden. Peter and his family indulge in a feast of vegetables, their earlier scare forgotten in the excitement. Peter, recovering his bravado, declares the victory. We witness a joyous celebration as animals from all over the countryside descend upon McGregor's manor. The party scene is a riot of color and movement. Meanwhile, in the heart of London, we're introduced to Thomas McGregor. Thomas is a fastidious and ambitious young man working at the prestigious Harrods department store. We first see him meticulously arranging a toy display, his movements precise and calculated. Thomas's world is shaken when he finds out that the promotion he deserves has been given to the boss's nephew. He feels frustrated and disappointed. Enraged, he destroys the toys in a fit of anger. Eventually, Thomas is fired by his manager. Just as Thomas is at his lowest point, he receives news of his great-uncle's death and his inheritance of the countryside manor. We see a spark of hope in Thomas's eyes as he formulates a plan, intending to fix up the property, sell it, and use the proceeds to open his own toy store. Back in the countryside, the rabbits are unaware of the new threat. They continue their celebration, oblivious to the fact that Thomas is on his way. Upon arriving, Thomas is shocked by the state of the house. As he arrives at the manor, his eyes widen in horror at the sight of animals running amok on the property. Thomas's first encounter with the local wildlife is both comical and chaotic. He chases animals out of the house. The next morning, he cleans the entire house and closes off every entrance that the rabbits could use to get inside. Later, Bee meets Thomas and she gives him a present. She is surprised by his seemingly kind nature. She encourages him to share the garden with the animals, a suggestion Thomas pretends to consider. But when Bee leaves and he sees the rabbits approaching the garden, he swiftly secures the gates with a sturdy iron net, ensuring no gaps remain. Peter and Benjamin attempt to infiltrate the garden by climbing onto the roof, trying to walk along the cables to get inside. But they lose their balance and fall, landing right in front of Thomas. A chaotic chase ensues, Peter and Benjamin narrowly escaping from there. Bee and Thomas begins to spend more and more time together, and seeing this, Peter grows increasingly jealous. The bond between the couple grows closer as they begin to develop feelings for each other. As the rain starts, they run to Bea's house. Before the rabbits can enter, Bee closes the door, unaware that the rabbits are right behind her. Peter sees Bee drying Thomas with the same affection she once showed him. It feels like salt in the wound. In a fit of jealousy, Peter kicks the door open and leaps toward Thomas, but Bee manages to catch him. She introduces Peter to Thomas and asks Thomas to hold him while she prepares to paint their portrait. As soon as she leaves, Peter and Thomas begin to fight with each other. In the chaos, Peter accidentally destroys Bea's painting. Bee is heartbroken and furious with Peter, blaming him for the mess and the damage to her art. She kicks Peter out, leaving him to reflect on his actions. Meanwhile, Thomas sees this as a victory, believing he's finally won the battle for the garden and Bea's affection. Determined to take back control, Peter leads one final assault on Thomas. The rabbits train for the attack, preparing themselves for the biggest challenge yet. They set up a series of traps for Thomas. As he wakes up and sees Peter in the bed, he falls into every trap set by them before he can do anything. Peter is pleased with his small success, but little do they know, the war has just begun. Thomas, determined to rid the garden of the rabbits, sets up electric fences and various other traps. The rabbits are not ready to back down. They devise another plan and manage to flip the switch, turning off the electricity through the fences. Then, they reroute the power to the house doors, setting up a new trap. They make their way to the garden, where Thomas, watching them through the window, expects them to get shocked by the electric fences. Instead, the rabbits safely climb over the fences and taunt Thomas, enjoying their successful prank. When Thomas tries to leave, he is thrown back by the electricity. Despite trying other doors, he climbs onto the roof of the attic, where Peter activates the electricity. Thomas is thrown back by the shock and eventually knocked unconscious. Peter, satisfied with his success, feels he has knocked down another McGregor, but the war is far from over. At night, Thomas retaliates by setting up explosives, intending to blow up the rabbit's burrow. However, his plans are interrupted by Bee. The next day, Peter decides to expose Thomas in front of Bee. When Thomas is about to strike Peter, Bee intervenes. Despite this, Peter and the rabbits continue to attack Thomas with slingshots. Bee, unaware of the situation, talks to Thomas from afar, and he follows her instructions while enduring the attacks. When Bee leaves, Thomas decides he's had enough. The climax of the conflict occurs when Thomas, at his wit's end, resorts to using explosives to try to catch the rabbits. The scene becomes chaotic, with rabbits darting between garden rows as small explosions erupt around them. The final explosion catches Bea's attention. Bee saw Thomas's behavior and noticed him suddenly being nice to Peter, pretending that Peter was choking on food. When Bee asked about the noise, Thomas denied any trouble, and Bee believed him, leaving with Thomas. Meanwhile, Peter spotted a remote fall from Thomas's pocket and pressed a button, triggering another explosion. The explosion caused damage to part of Bea's house. Peter hid the remote, and Bee blamed Thomas. Although Thomas defended himself, Bee did not believe him. Thomas attempted to explain the situation, including the rabbit's traps, but Bee thought he was mad, and leaves with Rabbit from there. Peter, realizing he has destroyed not only his home but also the relationship between Bee and Thomas. The next day, Thomas puts his property up for sale and leaves for London. We see Peter having a moment of realization. In a poignant scene, he looks at a family portrait, seeing the disappointment in his parents' painted eyes. This leads to his decision to make things right. He apologizes to his family and then leaves for London. Benjamin joins him at the train station. When they arrive in London, they ask for help from a rat, who then takes them to the store. When Peter finally finds Thomas, their interaction is both tense and touching. Through a series of gestures and charades, Peter manages to convey the urgency of the situation to Thomas. We see the moment of understanding dawn on Thomas's face, followed by a look of determination. The journey back to the countryside is a race against time, filled with comical misadventures. Back at the manor, they arrive just in time to catch Bee before she leaves. The scene is emotional as Thomas and Peter, former enemies, work together to explain the truth to Bee. Touched by their honesty and cooperation, decides to give them another chance. The movie concludes with scenes of harmony at the manor. We see Thomas and Bee sharing a picnic in the garden, surrounded by rabbits and other wildlife. Peter and his family have their own little vegetable patch, which they tend with pride. The once pristine manor now has a lived-in, cheerful feel, with evidence of both human and animal inhabitants. This has been a recap of the Peter Rabbit movie. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more exciting stories from Flashback Flicks. See you next time.